Hello and welcome to the Business Today show. I'm Udayan Mukherjee. The Indian diagnostics market is in a bit of a flux, and nowhere is it more evident than in the stock market, where the stock prices of many of the listed players have plummeted nearly 40% over the last 1 year, and they used to be the darlings of the market just about a year or year and a half ago. So what has changed? What has changed is some of these big giants like Tata's and Reliance have entered the fray, and they have shaken up the market, leading to concerns that growth for many of the incumbents and the established players will no longer be as strong as they have enjoyed over the last 4 or 5 years. Now, against the onslaught of these new entrants, one company which has been holding its own admirably and trying to reinvent itself to become a consumer pathology company is Metropolis Healthcare. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Managing Director of the company, Ameera Shah, to talk about what's going on in the diagnostics market today and how she's trying to position her company against some of the big boys in this, or new entrants into this space. Ameera, thank you very much for joining you, and it's great to see you on the show.
My pleasure, and thank you so much for having me.
Great. So, let me ask the first question first, because, everybody in the markets are concerned that this space, I mean, before we come to your company, the diagnostic space has seen its best days behind it, that it will grow, but the growth will be much lower than what we are used to seeing over the last 5 or 6 years. Do you agree with that basic premise, or do you think the market's got it wrong?
I think it's somewhere in between. Look, I think as incumbents in the industry, it would be foolish for us to say nothing has happened, nothing has changed, and everything is the same way it is. I don't think it is. But at the same time, the other extreme, which is that, oh, now it's going to be really difficult for incumbents and leaders to grow because new players have come in, I think is also the other extreme of the pendulum. And really the truth, I think, lies somewhere in between. I think the challenge, honestly, for most investors, analysts, people in the industry or outside the industry is actually that they don't really fully fathom the nuances of the industry completely. So, till pre-COVID, the entire business of diagnostics was actually illness-based. And when I say illness-based, that means the patient gets sick, they go to the doctor suggests a particular path lab, either for routine tests or for advanced tests, and then that patient accordingly goes to that path lab. That's what we define as the illness business. And that business actually is very dependent on the doctor's recommendation, and the doctor is the main influencer. And really for the industry, that has been really in a lot of ways the gatekeeper. Now people have their own varieties of opinions on whether this is good or bad, but the reality is when you're burning with 103 fever, or you think your mother has cancer, or you think your father can't walk because he's had a stroke, you are dependent on the doctor to help you and guide you to make the right decisions, because the information is so asymmetrical, it's impossible for you to understand. And what happened is during COVID, is two things. There has been some adoption of technology in healthcare, which never was there before. And consumers have become a little bit more aware of their health for making their own decisions for when they are well and they are actually perfectly fine, not when they're sick. And this has created a completely new category in healthcare, which is on the wellness side. So all the players that actually you're referring to are on the wellness side and have actually come in by saying, we don't want to talk to the doctor. The doctor is irrelevant. And we want to directly go to the consumer and sell them wellness services, for when they're perfectly fine. And they're pitching convenience and service and price as sort of the main reasons why consumers should go to them. With the hope that at some day, even though that makes losses, that some of those consumers will start trusting them for the illness side. And I think that's the entire premise of their platform. I think it's going to be a mixed bag for many of them. And we'll have to really wait and watch as to see how this industry develops.
No, it's an important point that you make, and I want to ask you about this. What, to your mind, has been the experience so far with these new entrants in the B2C segment or in the wellness segment that you're talking about that they're trying to address? Have they made significant inroads? Have they been able to dent the trust or the business that you've built over the years with consumers? What has been the experience, real experience?
See, that each of us as incumbents, firstly, let's understand what is the market which was there for diagnostics pre-COVID, right? Just to understand the structure of the industry. If you actually see, there are approximately 150,000 to 200,000 labs in the country. And the reason I say approximately is because nobody knows, because there is no regulation or minimum standard in our industry, and therefore labs keep mushrooming up without any sanctity of what they're actually doing. And often patients get badly cheated because in many cases labs don't even do the test, right? So that's sort of the unorganized. Then there are about 30 to 40 regional chains which have gotten created over the years, which were one of these individual unorganized labs, which then grew to become, 5 or 10 or 15 labs across 1 or 2 cities. And then you have the 3 or 4 national players, which are truly pan-India and are able to offer services across. And besides being pan-India, companies like Metropolis, we offer 4,000 varieties of tests, which means we do everything from a very basic cholesterol, which everybody else does, to very complicated genomics and genetics. Now, if you look at the business that Metropolis has built, we've actually built our business in the acute illness space. And what that means is that, probably when there is a common cough and cold, you as a consumer may or may not, you may go to your local patch lab. But when you fall genuinely sick and you go to your doctor and you need a specialized test, your doctor will most probably recommend you to come to us because they know that we'll give you the right quality, the right report, in the right time, giving the right medical interpretation for the doctor to actually make a decision based on that test. And you have to remember, these are very significant tests, right? If we give you a report and we tell you you're cancerous, your doctor is removing an organ of your body removing that organ from your body based on that report. Or we tell you something which is not there, right? These are very life-changing decisions, and therefore the quality behind it is very, very critical. So for us, our business model, we have really never gone to consumerize pathology in the past, and therefore the kind of business we have is more, like I said, acute illness. These players which have come in on the wellness side have not managed to really impact our business in any significant way. There are other players though who are doing more routine testing and more common chronic testing, more wellness testing. For them, of course, I think the impact may be slightly more. But I'll tell you, like in every other industry where you've seen a new channel come in, whether it was retail, whether it was e-commerce, often people go wrong when they say, oh, Kirana stores will be destroyed when e-commerce players come in, or brick and mortar retail will be destroyed when this happens. And actually, there is a customer in India for both. There is a reason for both. We have to remember that a lot of the new entrants may be having convenience, maybe having price, maybe having a quick service as a way to go and do a quick collection. But today they still have to earn the trust and the respect of people as far as the quality of reports, and they still are actually more expensive in their costing than the incumbents, because the incumbents have volumes which these companies don't have, and they don't have therefore those kind of systems either. So there will be a customer who needs different things from different people, and I think there is enough of a market for everybody to serve.
I take your point on trust, Ameera, and it's a well-made point. But I also want to point out that some of these new entrants, not all of them, like for example Tata 1mg, it comes from the house of Tatas, which is not exactly lacking in trust with the Indian consumer. You don't think that something like a Tata brand might actually represent the kind of trust that you're talking about, and those players might actually take away some of your business? Would they not be worthy challengers in your book?
Well, I think the trust of a consumer is very different from the trust of a doctor, and we have to understand that. And I don't want to reflect on any particular name, any of the names that you're mentioning, but we have to remember that somebody who does a great job in one particular part of healthcare doesn't mean they do a great job in another particular part of healthcare. So forget about companies who are not in healthcare at all. For example, if today Metropolis, if all the consumers who trust us, and let's say we start offering services for eye care, and I say, hey, every Metropolis consumer, I'm going to offer you now great eye care. It doesn't mean that all those consumers who trust me for pathology are suddenly going to start coming to my doors for eye care, because I don't have the expertise on that. So even though I may have their trust on one thing, it doesn't mean that trust automatically transferred to another. And you have to understand what drives that trust. It is not the brand that drives the trust. It's the operational excellence behind the brand that drives the trust. So for example, when excuse me, a doctor is referring a consumer to us for that cancer test I was telling you, in most cases, a lab will have a general histopathologist who might have 2 years experience. Metropolis will have not a general histopathologist, we have subspecialists So if you have potentially a cancer issue in your lung, we have a lung cancer specialist to do the test, or a kidney cancer specialist who has seen thousands of slides and tissue specimens on that particular organ. It is that experience and expertise that builds trust. It is not just the brand. And when we go and meet doctor to doctor, this is what we are showing them, our operational excellence behind the scenes that makes the doctors trust us. And please remember that every doctor you have to earn the trust and respect of. And it doesn't come automatically, however big your brand is.
Okay, fair enough. Now, the other concern which a lot of people have is, even if the top line or the business itself continues to grow, the margins or the profitability metrics will change dramatically because of the heightened competition in the market. So I want to ask you, what percentage of your business is susceptible to the price erosion that we are seeing, or the kind of price challenge that you're seeing from competitors? There have been offers like 4 tests for 100 rupees, those kind of things. But that does not presumably cover the entire portfolio that you have. So what percentage of your portfolio is that challenge coming in?
I think the question has to be reframed, and I'll tell you why. Even before any of these players came in, please understand there was a price point for every test in India already available. There is nothing new that has happened. So for example, let's take a cholesterol. If we charge 150 rupees for that cholesterol, there were hospitals charging 300 rupees for that cholesterol. And there are local path labs which may not have any accreditation or quality, which were offering 50 rupees or 60 rupees for that cholesterol. So you have every price point available in the Indian market much before COVID and before any of the entrance players, right? So it is not that the new players have come in and now suddenly lowered the price of pathology in the industry that already exists. Actually, what is drawing consumers to them is the ease of the app, is the use of technology, is the way of digitization. And please understand, all of that is only happening on the wellness side. So if a consumer who gets an ad on Facebook or Insta that says, why don't you do a checkup today, it's 500 rupees, and somebody will come home and you'll get it on an app, that's what's attracting the consumer. But when that same consumer falls sick and goes to the doctor, their choices are very different. Because suddenly the test result is very, very important to them to make an important decision. And therefore, they are not willing to go to anybody and everybody, and they want to go to a trusted player by their doctor. And therefore, the consumer behavior is very different on the wellness side and different on the illness side. Now, the way we have built our business is we have only gone and spent all our time in building operational excellence and meeting with very high-end doctors. So actually, majority of our business, if not 100%, comes from acute illness. So we are not in the business anyway of selling tests for just a low price, even though we're very affordable. The average ticket size is what, 800, 900 rupees. That's nothing that, you do it once a year. It's not going to change your life. Most people spend that much money going and watching a movie in a theater. But these are decisions which are going to impact your entire life. So I think we have to somewhere stop talking about price in pathology, because you do a test once a year, it's not that expensive. It's 1/10 the price in the US, or 1/20th the price in the US. And I think what we do have to start talking about, that if that test is wrong, well, how does it affect your life and how does it change?
In the midst of all this, you have taken on a mission to consumerize pathology. Take us through what the plan is. What kind of specific categories would you be targeting, which will give you a much greater addressable universe and a bigger growth runway going forward?
Sure. See, I think what we already know how to do and what we've done well is build that trust, that credibility with doctors. And in the past, we've always looked at, and even currently, our main engine, our main way of engaging with healthcare is to go through doctors, because doctors are the ones who understand the technical details of these tests, right? But there are many tests in which the consumer can actually be taking their own decision if we empower them with the right information. And our thought is really, it's not about going to consumers and luring them with prices only, or telling them that you'll get a collection done in 1 hour. The important thing really, if you want to make a difference in healthcare, is to empower consumers with knowledge. Let them start getting involved in their own health and let them start making decisions for things which they don't need to go to the doctor. So the annual checkup, they can do without going to the doctor, but post getting the result, they need information to help them make the right decision on what to do. Right? The way we present our reports to them can be much better in terms of how they understand it or how they see it. So I think there are many things that we can do, and we are talking to the consumer directly. while maintaining the high level of global quality that we already offer, while continuing the operational excellence, but now creating an engagement with the consumer that builds a relationship with them, that helps them, that supports them in their own relationship with their own health. And I think that's the role that we would like to play going forward. It's not about who can drive the maximum GMV and who can drive the maximum sales. At the end of the day, these are not just samples. These are the lives of people. And I think we all have very much a responsibility to make sure that whatever we do in healthcare has to be done with absolute utmost responsibility and not casually in it.
Is ease of testing one of those planks in reaching out to the consumer? Because, during COVID, home testing, which you did very successfully, became a big calling card. But do you think it's a scalable model?
So again, it's strange because we see different consumer behaviors in illness and wellness. So while home testing we've been offering for donkey's years on the illness side, and obviously grew much more during COVID because people couldn't step out of their houses. But if you look now post-COVID and post things coming back to normalcy, you still see that people prefer the brick and mortar route than they do the home visit route for illness. Sometimes it may be counterintuitive when people say, why would anybody want to go to a center when somebody can come home? But often people have their own concerns and worries around why they don't want someone to come home. So we are still seeing brick and mortar having majority of sort of sample patient engagement rather than a home visit. But on the wellness side, because these new companies wanted to not have centers and because they didn't have centers and will take time to build it, they started pushing home services as a way to quickly get the sample from the patient, for wellness or from the consumer. And that's why there's such an uproar about home visits. But this is really more because there's a lot of push marketing happening and home visits are sort of being used as the primary channel of consumer acquisition. I do believe that home visits will continue to grow, as will brick and mortar. There will be a different use case for both of them.
What about the flip side of it? Because there were rumors a few months ago that you may actually be looking at somebody to sell Metropolis out to. Because there's so much intense competition now, it might be a good exit time. Would you ever sell Metropolis, your stake in Metropolis, if one of the larger new entrants made you a lucrative offer?
Like you said rightly, there were rumors, and that's all they were, rumors. We were very transparent with the exchange when we commented them and said that we have received inbound interest from players for a minority investment in Metropolis. And if we find a strategic fit and if there's any serious conversation, we will keep participants of the exchange informed. As we explored that interest, we found there wasn't a strategic fit. And therefore, we paused that entire exercise and went back and informed people that at this point of time, we have not found a strategic fit. But to be very, very clear, this was always only to accept a minority investment if there was something that was going to add value to our vision of Metropolis 3.0, which was two engines of growth. One is illness and one is wellness. At this point of time, this is not an option that we are considering at all about selling.
That, I was going to say, is consistent with your track record in the past, because a few years ago you took a large personal loan and bought out one of your PEs for 600 crores. So did you not?
Absolutely right. I had only 36% stake in the company, and I took a very large punt on myself actually, and a very large structured debt at the time of 600 crores, and went on to buy the 27% of equity that was held at the time by one of the private equity investors, therefore taking my stake to 65% odd. And that only showed my belief in the company and what I believe we could build. And that continues to be the same case today. Nothing has changed in the past few years. And we believe that Metropolis can continue to be a great institution over the next many, many years. And we have a vision for not only building it, like I said, on the illness side with the wellness, and really making it an equally large consumer company with a large consumer brand. And if there was anybody who helped us to do that a little faster, we were open to it. But otherwise not.
Well, that was an act of fairly remarkable self-belief. Have you always possessed that, Ameera?
I don't think self-belief is inborn or comes through magic wand. I think it's actually what you do in every action and step by step. And often I've always believed that exactly the things that we are afraid of are the things we need to do to actually conquer our doubt and our self-doubt in ourselves. And that's what builds self-belief. So in my adult age, I've tried to do all the actions to exactly try to, face the fears that I've had. Actually, that's what's really helped me build confidence at every stage of my life. So even when I took this humongous risk, it's not like I felt everything was going to be great. It's not like I didn't have doubt. It's not like I, knew everything was going to be fine. I just was very analytical in how I assessed it. I was very objective in how I assessed it. But finally, it came from a deep sense of wanting to take Metropolis to its true destiny, and wanting to bet on myself to take the company there. And with all the fears and doubts, I still did it. And you know what? When I came out on the other side, I came out a much stronger, more confident person.
And along this journey, have you drawn inspiration from other business leaders, other successful women in business, people that you've looked up to, considered mentors in a way?
Mentor is a big word, but I would say that there are many individuals who I have, either from afar or up close, learned something from. And I try to accumulate all these wonderful traits that I see from all these individuals and try to see if there's some way I can harness them for the good of my organization. One of the people, for example, Deepak Parekh, is an incredibly humble person for everything that he's accomplished in his life. And I take a great sense of comfort from that you can go on to be a great achiever, but still be very grounded and down to earth. Zia and Kiran Majumdar and Zia Modi, both of them are incredibly, fiery women. Both who go after what they want. They're not afraid of what the world says about them. And they will do what they believe is right in their heart, for their business or for their life. And I think that's an uncommon trait in India, where most women, have to mold themselves and change themselves to adapt to the conditioning of everybody else around us. And watching both of them and engaging with both of them, made me braver in my outreach as well. I've seen Uday Kotak, for example, who's an incredibly smart, builder, and has just stayed absolutely focused on his one business. No distractions. No 1,000 people must have suggested him do this also, and he's just said laser focused, disciplined, and just continue to build an incredible organization. So I think there are lessons to learn, frankly, from everybody. And I'm naming some of the more well-known people, but I'll tell you, I've learned equal lessons from the nameless and people who you may not recognize, but who meet on a day-to-day basis and have incredible life stories and life journeys to share with us. Most of them not even well off, and actually quite poor, but their own sense of their faith, their journey, belief, and emotion really astounds.
Well, it was lovely talking to you, Ameera, today. My congratulations on what you've achieved so far, and best wishes for your journey, and I'm sure you'll go on to much greater heights in life from here on. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Lovely chatting with you too.